to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No, I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. Zach Goins here with Johnny Sobchak. Johnny, it's good to be back, isn't it?
It is good to be back. It's always good to be back. I've missed doing the pod because I have been MIA for some time now.
Because you weren't a part of the family.
I was not a part of the family for the Fast 9 F9 review episode, but it was a banger to be sure. So I'm glad that I snuck out of that one, didn't I? I mean, I would have had to have seen it otherwise. So.
And then you don't understand the lore, the mythology, all of that important stuff of
the historical context needed to do the review. But we have a new movie that I was more interested in this week. That's of course the MCU's return to the big screen after really kicking off their show side of things on Disney Plus. We got Black Widow, which was also released on Disney Plus for premiere access. I got to see that last week, so I've had time to ruminate on it, and I'm ready to break that open and talk a little bit about Loki on the Disney Plus side of things, on the show side of things, and then a little bit of trailer talk. That's some exciting things happening there. So yeah, it's gonna be a shorty but a goodie.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot to kind of. It's like you said, it's been a while since you and I are together doing this, but we're just going to focus on the here and now instead of recapping everything from the last 3 weeks, because otherwise that would be a very lengthy podcast.
Yeah, 5 hours.
But like you, I watched Black Widow about 2 weeks ago at this point, when we got the screener. I watched it at home, so I haven't gotten the theatrical experience. I think I'm actually going to see it tomorrow in theaters with Rebecca, because she didn't get to catch the screener. So I'm interested to see how different that may be in a theater versus at home. But yeah, and Marvel, like you said, Marvel centric. We've got Loki talking about, again, we haven't talked about this since episode 2, so we're not going to break down every single episode, but just general thoughts on what we see before we reevaluate next week after the finale, talk about maybe what we hope or expect to see, if we're willing to venture into that territory after we've been burned in WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier with predictions and theories. But that's on the docket. And a quick shout out, quick plug for the website. A lot of things coming soon. Lots of home releases coming out from Paramount, from Warner Brothers, from Lionsgate. We've got 48 Hours and another 48 Hours. Both came out and we're writing that up as we speak. Almost Famous, another one from Paramount with a 4K home release. Spiral is coming out soon from the Book of Saw. And Wrath of Man with Jason Statham, speaking of the family, will be coming up. All of those coming up soon on the site. And Wrath of Man, we're going to have a giveaway, so be sure to stay tuned to our social media on Twitter and Instagram so you can enter in that. But in the last 3 weeks, what's been going on? Anything exciting, Johnny, movie wise, TV wise, personal wise?
So I mean, I've been digging into what I can in my spare time. I'd say movie-wise, the most exciting thing I've done recently was I discovered, and I tweeted a little bit, a quick tweet about it, that my girlfriend had never seen the original Spider-Man movies, the Sam Raimi films with Tobey Maguire and company. So that was a bit of a shock. I don't know how that never had come up before. And she has, of course, seen all the MCU movies. So she's seen the 2 Tom Holland solo movies and his appearances in the Avengers movies. And then she had also seen the Andrew Garfield ones, which are, more recent. But we, over the last few days, we went in and I showed her all three of those, the Sam Raimi films, and she was like over the moon about them. Like, she really liked them, which was great. And I was also very surprised, and it was a pleasant revisit for me because I just had forgotten how great that those movies are. I distinctly remember the original being one of the first movies I saw in theaters. That came out in like May 2002, I think. And so that, I mean, there's a lot of nostalgia there, but actually coming back and revisiting it after not looking at them for so long and being exposed to, the MCU for so long, and other, the superhero genre is like exploded.
Right.
Going back to one of the originals, I think was interesting, and having that kind of additional context. But it's a great change of pace and tone and vision and all that. So I really would recommend anyone who hasn't seen those movies, ever, of course, but also if you haven't seen them in years, multiple years, for me, it had probably been since, I mean, at least 6 years, probably, since high school, even middle school. So, go back and check those out. I think you'd be very surprised to see your feelings would probably change on them. You'd be amazed by how they hold up, with the effects and the writing and the characterizations and all that. I think, any issues they do have, I think Sam Raimi, for the most part, overcomes those with his special flavor that he has, which is, I'm excited to see him come back and he's directing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is one of the most anticipated MCU projects coming up. So it's all good. I mean, and of course we also have the rumors swirling about Spider-Man No Way Home, Tobey Maguire, Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, all presumably coming back and are going to appear in that movie. And so I think it was another good thing to revisit before that, the trailer even comes out. And then of course the movie comes out in December.
I'm one of those people that you've described who I've obviously seen those movies, but it's been quite some time. I have the same kind of memories that you do of loving the first two, third one being somewhat of a disappointment. But I feel like obviously with everything that's coming in December with Spider-Man 3, that a rewatch is going to be mandatory. And it's funny because like I've always been like a defender of the Amazing Spider-Man movies. I enjoyed those more than most people. And like I still think that the original 3 movies are better than those, like as far as movies go.
Definitely,
but I've always been
you've liked them.
I've always been an Andrew Garfield over Tobey Maguire as like the character Peter Parker. Okay. So I think that now, like maybe going back, watching both of those franchises and reevaluating with more of like a critical eye versus just like a fan eye. That'll be interesting. So I'll definitely be doing that at some point between now and December.
No, I mean, and that was something I think I had potentially mentioned on an earlier episode. But I thought that would be a really cool thing for us to do on the pod, like as talking about those movies, rewatching them, and then maybe doing like a mini review or a discussion about all three, because they are great. I mean, they're classics. I really do think that they hold up, and not only as, of course, fundamental, foundational entries in the genre, but also as big blockbuster, 21st century movies that people are, they're nostalgic for, but they are also in and of themselves very good movies.
I think you may have just come up with our next little side project series between now and then. But
hey, I'm looking forward to it if it happens.
Well, I, like you, I haven't really had too much going on the cinematic front beyond Black Widow. That's actually the only movie I've seen since that last F9 episode. Because I went to the beach with Rebecca and her family. So I was down there this past week and didn't have much time for viewing, except for Loki, of course, which we're going to talk about. Her younger brother and I, he's like a huge superhero fan and stuff. So we've always had seen those movies together and got to watch the episode 5 together. And I also got some very topical, timely screeners, seeing that I was at the beach. So I got Outer Banks season 2 screeners. So I checked out 2 episodes of that so far. Can't talk about it yet, but very excited for that show to come back at the end of July. I'm sure you would absolutely hate it, Johnny, the show in general, because it's the most like insane, crazy, like it's like teen soap opera drama, like sort of like
Oh man.
I'm trying to think, but it's like, like every generation like has their. I'm trying to think, like I don't know. I didn't watch like Gossip Girl or something, so it's not that.
That's what I was thinking of.
But like it's just like in that same genre of like over dramatic, like, but kind of like not in like it's parts of it are cringy, but it's like not over dramatic and like oh my god he broke my heart kind of way. It's like we're killing police officers and going on like manhunts. Like the first season starts out like semi normal and then it just like
Just,
shit hits the fan and it's like the most like every episode keeps getting more and more absurd. So season 2 is very highly anticipated for myself. I know Jake loved it. So I'm excited to continue digging into those and get some thoughts written out on that. But also on the TV side of things, Ted Lasso, baby.
Oh boy.
Season 2 world premiere this week on Thursday. Your boy will be in attendance.
I can't believe it.
I know. I absolutely cannot believe this. I'm flying to Los Angeles to attend the world premiere of Ted Lasso season 2, first episode. Hopefully I will confront Jason Sudeikis and tell him, you've been hiding, you've been running, but I will find you because you're the only person I haven't interviewed. So now we're going to do it right here in person.
Hey, you gotta make it happen.
I know. Gotta shoot my shot, but I'm very, very absolutely thrilled for that. That's huge. And I can't wait to be able to talk all about it. But the embargo for the first episode lifts today as you are listening it on this Monday. So obviously not going to spoil anything that happens, but I will just go ahead and give you the thumbs up that it's a great episode. It's good. Season 2 picks right back up in terms of quality with season 1, how absolutely outstanding that show was. And I'm glad to see that it's getting a lot of attention with the Hollywood Critics Association for Television Awards. So
yeah,
hopefully that'll continue into Emmy season, and look for maybe a preview article and a review of the first episode on the website coming this week. So lots of exciting Lasso content carrying on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess congratulations, Zach. I mean, that's an amazing opportunity, and you certainly. The thing is here, people, you don't understand, especially for anyone, maybe a new listener or someone who was paying attention to the week of Lasso coverage that Zach put together with the interviews, the video interviews and all that. That doesn't just magically happen. Like you have to reach out, you have to get in contact with these people or the representatives. You have to come up with questions. You have to get the video set up. You have to edit. There's so much work that goes into it. And the fact that, you did basically the entire cast. And then you, of course, it went over so well that you got invited to the premiere, like one of very few people's that's what shows when you put in the groundwork, you grind, you get in there, it pays off. So again, congrats, and stay tuned, folks, for whatever is coming up with the Ted Lasso coverage.
For sure. Thank you for that shout out. I appreciate it. And I could have had a wingman if only you'd watched season 1 by now.
Yeah, I know it's in the timing of all this, is not ideal for me personally. But I am looking forward to season 2 and watching season 1. I'm sure I'll binge it because that's what seems like everyone does with this show.
Right. And it'll be nice. They're weekly episodes. So July 23rd will be the first one. And then even if you're not ready by then, you'll then have a whole nother week until the second episode. So you can play catch up.
Yeah.
Well, let's flip it over to another weekly show. Let's talk Loki. Like I said, episodes 3 through 5, basically, we have not talked about this in quite some time, and we're not going to go through every detail, every plot point of those last 3 episodes. But before we have that whole, series reflection next week after the finale has aired, what are we thinking? How is this stacking up to everything that we've seen? Any highs or lows so far from the show?
Yeah, I was very, for anyone who remembers or had heard, I was very high on the first 2 episodes. Like I was impressed beyond anything I really expected, especially coming out of WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which were 2 shows that I was not keen on for a multitude of reasons. And so tempered expectations, pleasantly surprised. But I knew coming after those first 2 episodes, I was like, okay, we got 4 episodes to go. Anything could really happen. I mean, this quality could go all over the place. The writing, action, the intrigue, everything else. But they have done a very good job. I still don't know if they have necessarily the episodes have been good to great, I would say. But I really liked how those first couple episodes, especially between the relationship they established between Loki and Morbius, I thought was just so strong. And Owen Wilson is like,
wow, talk about a crossover there with Morbius. Throw Jared Leto in the mix. Like, we're really in the variants, the multiverses here.
Mobius rather. And Owen Wilson, like I said, is what I was going to say is that he's, I think, put together one of the best performances really in the entire MCU, and one of the most likable, interesting characters in Mobius.
Mm-hmm.
And so those first 2 episodes really focused on them, really focused on him and his strong dynamic with Loki. And of course, the show has moved on. They've introduced more characters. Mobius's role has shifted, somewhat. But it's stayed strong. I'm really anxious about this last episode. I think it'll end, I think it'll end really well. I think it'll be a great, they'll stick the landing situation, but I am also nervous that it's going to be a disappointment, and I really don't want that to happen, obviously. Because once this last episode comes out, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? We don't really know what the character of Loki or the character of Mobius in future movies or another season of the show potentially.
This is the one that was like teased, or not necessarily teased, but just not mentioned, not like there was not a fine line drawn that said this would just be a one season, like it was for WandaVision, or even I'm not sure if that was the same for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but this one was specifically like ambiguous as to whether there could be more. So I'm sure we hopefully will have a better answer as to what to expect there after next week. But I'm with you on the finale. Like, we've been burned before. WandaVision seemed to be building up a ton of stuff as to what the finale would hold, or who the big bad would be, or what. But
you're right.
But this just seems so like the ending of episode 5, showing they get through the smoke to, what is it, Chronopolis.
I can't remember.
Yeah, so that's like it shows like this castle area, this world, and it's like everyone on the internet has determined that that's Chronopolis, which is where Kang the Conqueror lives, because the smoke monster that was guarding it is straight up from Kang. There were like multiple, there were so many different like direct references to Kang, who we know is going to be Jonathan Majors in Ant-Man 3 Quantumania. But are they teasing this early? Are they setting it up? Will we get a Jonathan Majors cameo? Is this going to be like an absolute like pull the rug out from under you? They can't keep getting away with it if that's the case here. Like
yeah, I mean, there's huge potential for a fuck up, for lack of a better term.
Great term.
I think that you're right to point that out. One of the things, not a gripe that I have with Loki as a show, but I think a concern that has been building as episodes have gone on, and as we've come to the conclusion that is next week, or this week, I guess now rather, is that it is somewhat leaning into that kind of mystery box aspect where, okay, there's this big mystery, but are you going to have an actual resolution or solution, an outcome that is logical and satisfactory, or is it going to be,
I mean, I'm okay. Like, I'm okay if it's not everything like wrapped up with a bow, because like Loki could continue on. We know that Ant-Man 3 is not dated until 2023. So like, I don't like, tease me Kang and I'm satisfied. Like, let me know that is what it is. I don't need to see him. I don't need to have a conversation or witness his powers or anything.
That's fair. Yeah.
Like, just don't be trying to misdirect me and do something that's just like an absolute letdown. Like,
yeah, no, I'm totally in agree.
I don't expect to see anything like super concrete, knowing that we're still 2 years away at the earliest from seeing him in Ant-Man.
Yes.
Like, this show still could have legs. The MCU, like, I want the teases and the interconnectivity and the Easter eggs and everything where it's like you do have to keep tuning in.
Right.
So I don't need like concrete evidence or answers, but just don't make it be like something that is very heavily teased and that's not the case.
Right. Well, on that note, you know, if we're going to talk a little spoiler here on episode 5, it ends with them seemingly breaking through to a haunted mansion or something, like on a cliff.
No.
Like,
That's Chronopolis. That's what I was just talking. The
okay,
town, the
gotcha.
city of, it's like Kang's society, which I also thought at first. And that
like, was where was that confirmed, or like was that explained? That wasn't mentioned in the show, was it?
No. That's what the internet sleuths have been like. So I didn't know this. Obviously, I've said so many times on this that I do all the reading on the comic book stuff. I don't have the lore in the back of my head, but like people were saying that smoke monster is like a product of Kang, who guarded this city, guarded this city in the comics, which is Chronopolis, which was created by Kang. Or it's like where he resides. And so it's like there was so much evidence pointing to the fact that it can't be anything else. But my first reaction, though, I thought I saw it and I didn't know what it was, and then I thought maybe it could be like it looked almost like a ruined like Xavier mansion. You said
because it looks like a single like mansion, like a building, like. So
I'm gonna who knows? Hopefully it's
there's
not
so
a
much
misdirect, but.
Yeah, there's so much.
But I'm with you as far as looking back on 1 through 5. I've liked it quite a bit. You didn't mention, shout out to Owen Wilson. All of that I agree with, but Sylvie as well has been a great character. The dynamic between, like you said, 1 and 2 were Loki and Mobius, and then it pulled away and it was Loki and Sylvie, and they've had a great dynamic together. So
Stephanie DiMartino has been a little revelation of sorts. She's been really going tit for tat with Tom Hiddleston as Loki, which is no small feat, of course, as we've been shown. I've liked the arc that they've built, not only just for her, but her and Loki and their relationship. It's not really clear. Again, that's another big question mark. What's going to happen with those two? What's going to happen with Sylvie? And again, that's another, and that is one of the stronger emotional like elements for sure, that they've kind of hooked onto, which is good. And so I'm nervous. Like I said, I'm anxious. Next week I could be raving about the finale and how this series has panned out, or I could be pretty let down or disappointed or even pissed if they squander it. But I think Michael Waldron, the showrunner, writer, and then you have, of course, one of the directors, I think her name is Kate Herron, is the one who's been doing a lot of the directing on these. So they've been killing it so far. There's really no reason to assume that they're going to fly off the handle here at the very end, but I'm just gonna keep Kate Herron. I'm just gonna she's directed all the episodes, so she's been phenomenal. I'm excited. I'm ready to get into it. I'm just trying to stay level-headed.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to do when it comes to Marvel, but I'm with you there. I've got high hopes. I don't want to be let down, because I've really enjoyed this. It's obviously been my favorite of the 3 so far.
Easily for me.
But let's keep that energy going into this news segment. Like you said, we've got some trailers, and the Marvel episode rolls on with the first trailer for What If, which will be the next of the Marvel series to come. I believe August 12th, I think was the date. But that's the first animated one that we're going to be getting.
Not the last, they've said.
Yeah, not the last, but we got a trailer, and this was very, very exciting. Like we knew kind of the premise of it, of like, what if these big events in the MCU went differently? But I don't know about you, Johnny, but for me, I kind of took that as like, what if, I'm trying to think of a good example of what I was thinking, but like, not something that's like completely different, kind of like, this is so hard. now that I've seen evidence of what it is, but just like, what if like one thing in the movie happened differently, like sort of how Loki was able to escape, versus like this is completely different. Like, what if T'Challa was Star-Lord? Like, what if he was the one who had been taken up by Yondu? Or like, what if Killmonger saved Tony Stark? Like, I have no idea how that's gonna play out. I thought this would be like more grounded in like what we actually have seen so far.
Yeah.
But I'm very, very excited by what we've seen in this 2-minute trailer. You've got what if the Guardians were the ones in Avengers instead of the Avengers, where they have the iconic camera rotation around them. What were your thoughts here on the content of it, the look, the feel of it? Any expectations? Or
I think it looks fun. I don't think it looks like anything like holy, like wow, I can't believe, like, I mean, it's in its concept alone, like you can't really do anything to. I think it's kind of one of those instances where, because you can do anything, it almost is more limiting, because you're like thinking of how it's isolated from really the main MCU. Like, this is all just alternate stuff.
This is all just for fun.
Exactly. Basically. It's literally just for fun. Like, it's not affecting anything else. It's just about hypotheticals.
Which will be nice, though, since we just spent time talking about the interconnectivity of everything and how like we're going to be disappointed if this doesn't connect to that. Whereas this is like, let's just go watch a show and have some fun.
Yeah. Which I'm, more than welcome, to. The one thing I would say is a criticism is, and I've seen this at other places, I haven't seen a lot of reception to this. I think people in general are just like, okay, it's Marvel, yeah, we're gonna watch it. But to me, the animation seems kind of like not super high like production value to me.
I was gonna say I liked it.
I mean, I don't know if I'm crazy here. It almost looks like something that could be done on like a YouTube account or something, could do a show like this, like in like 5-minute episodes or something, like almost like how it should have ended, like those.
I guess I could. I don't know. I just like the
certainly
fact
better
that
than
like,
that. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But yeah,
I just like the fact that it's like different, versus like what the extent of my like Disney animation like on Disney Plus is like watching the Clone Wars and Bad Batch, like the Star Wars style. And so like this is significantly different from that.
It's different.
It's not just like your 2D animation. But
not.
I like that it was like a different stylization. But I can see what you're saying about like comparing it to like a YouTube series or something, because
but again, not going to be like super focused on that. I'm just, it should be fun. It's cool. Chadwick Boseman, of course, everyone's been talking about. It's his last performance ever, live action or voice. So that'll be, I'm sure, a fairly emotional affair. Even though it looks like a very fun concept with him getting taken by Yondu and becoming Star-Lord. So that's fun. And I'm just excited to see all the different little possibilities that they'll come with. Another disappointment that I thought was strange or weird. I mean, I kind of understand it, but I think a few big names are not going to be returning to like do their voices in this show. Robert Downey Jr. was one of them. Chris Evans is another. Brie Larson. So that's a bit of a bummer. I
thought everybody was already in for that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I thought too. And then they kind of like slipped that in the announcement this last week about it. So yeah, so because I noticed it in the trailer that Tony Stark's voice seemed different. So I was not surprised to hear that, but I was surprised in general that they weren't able to. I figured that was part of the contracts that they had, and they were going to get them to go ahead and do this. But no, it's not. I mean, again, disappointing to an extent, but not a huge deal. I think a vast majority of the cast is returning and doing their voices. So, but other than that, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's next month. So it should be a fun little project we can check out in the meantime. And, Disney Animation has a lot of other stuff on the horizon, as opposed to, what the MCU and Marvel Studios is doing. And I guess I'm probably looking more forward to that.
Which is
Encanto. So you have Walt Disney Animation Studios. So of course, same people that have been behind, recent hits like Zootopia, Wreck-It Ralph, Tangled,
Moana,
Frozen, all those good ones. They are back. Moana.
Gotta put some respect on Moana.
They're back yet again, with Lin-Manuel Miranda in tow, of course. after he did some work on Moana and had some fantastic songs there. He's done, I think he's done all the songs for this new one, this new film. And so original songs, I'm excited. It's set in Colombia. It was a very much like a teaser trailer. It didn't show a whole lot as far as like plot. It just kind of introduced us to the characters and the setting. It gave us the bare minimum, but it looks like a lot of fun. I mean, the animation, as we all expect, is stunning. It looks beautiful. The colors are really popping. And the music was fun too. And we didn't get to hear a lot, of course, but it's primed up. It's going to be the typical like Thanksgiving time release for them. So I'm sure they'll get a decent chunk of change at the box office. I'm certainly going to be looking forward to it and checking it out when it comes out. What did you think?
Yeah, I can't remember if it was you or Josh in our group, but pointed out the fact that this is like a true teaser.
Yeah, I said that. Yeah,
I think the last half maybe looked like actual footage from the movie, but the first part was kind of just like, it didn't seem like it would be something that would be in the movie, but something that was made specifically for this teaser. Like as each character
it seemed like it was like the
themselves.
beginning. It was like the opening number probably or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But like each character was just kind of introducing themselves, and it was showing like front, like they were basically posing for the camera.
Yeah.
It seemed like versus something natural from a scene. But yeah, I'm very excited by it. All of the ones that you listed off were classics, like modern classics of Disney. And it's hard, people can hate on him for being cringe, but Lin-Manuel Miranda produces absolutely like incredible content, from Hamilton to Moana to now this. I know we talked about Tick Tick Boom, we'll see about that later, but I'm very pumped up for it. Nothing, that November date is always solid, whether it's a Frozen or a Moana or now this for Disney at the box office and for families coming to see movies. So I'm excited to check it out, and I'm sure we'll have some bangers to listen to on Spotify after this releases.
Yeah, I have no doubt that people will have these songs stuck in their heads long after they have left the theater. But we're going from family friendly on a more
emphasis on the family here.
On the family.
And it's not F10.
It's good. It's the good kind of family, but really the bad family, because it is the Roys returning, long awaited, season 3. I think they're finally just wrapped up with like in the last month or so, filming, and they're ready to kick it off this fall. I think it's probably going to be in November based on what they've said. In the past, we didn't get a specific date, but they randomly dropped a trailer, total surprise, like a full-on like 2-minute.
But people had been like clamoring, like it was a matter of like people knew it was coming,
yeah,
but just had no idea when. Like it was only a matter of time, but we were just dying for it.
Yeah, and of course, over the pandemic, over the last year and a half, I think more and more people have caught on to the show. They've streamed it or what have you. So the fan base has definitely grown, and I think more people than ever are into the show and are excited, looking forward to the 3rd season. And from what they've also said on the show running side of things is that they have a conclusion for the show in mind, in sight, and that they don't really intend to go beyond season 4 or 5 potentially. So we're this is going to be like the middle chapter. It seems like the middle, slab dab in the middle as far as the seasons go potentially. So it's really going to be. I mean, it's going to be picking up. I imagine it's going to be more dramatic than ever, and I mean, who knows where the hell you really can never know. I think with Succession where the season's going to end up. But it looks like there's gonna be plenty of drama with, of course, Kendall, making his moves and trying to, get other members of the family to, come to his side. And it's again, I don't know what's gonna happen, but looks like the laughs are still there. I thought this one highlighted the jokes, the dialogue that is like.
I mean, as long as cousin Greg's around, the laughs will be there.
The laughs will be there, and I think I thought it was really funny how they did like highlight the absurdity of the dialogue, especially the moment at the very end, which was Logan is on the phone talking to someone who is then relating the lines to Kendall, and Kendall is just like, and it's the most
unable to keep up,
over the top, like, I'm gonna grind his bones to make my bread, and then Kendall's like, oh, I'm gonna jump off the beanstalk, just like, and then Logan's like laughing, of course, on the other line. So yeah, it looks prime. It looks so good. I can't wait. It's gonna be a nice little towards the end of the year kind of comeback surprise, and HBO, of course, bangers as always.
As always.
Now we have one last little.
Well, hold on. Let me. I didn't even get to speak about Succession.
Well, you want to talk about more about Succession, huh?
Well, I was just gonna say that all respect to Ted Lasso, I think this will be the event of the television year. I mean, people. This is supposed to come out. This is supposed to come out last year. Pandemic delayed the production of it, and now it's finally, like you said, just wrapping up, getting ready to roll out. And people have been begging and waiting for this. That it's that Sunday night. I guess I never watched it live. I guess it's Sunday night, probably on
probably, yeah.
on HBO, like that 9:00 slot where it's just like the premiere show. But I think we've seen. It's going to be interesting how they do it. I have complete faith. But we've seen Kendall like step away from the family and go against them. You know, we've seen that happen before. So they'll have to do something to change this up. And it seems like it's going to be something along the lines of like, this seems to be like he's actually having some sway, and the family's it's like going to be like a civil war between the family of like, people are going to take sides instead of it just being Kendall on the outside looking in. Which I'm very excited to see the dynamics there, as maybe it's like someone you might not expect to be with him or against him, or the other way around.
Well, I think we already got a little bit of that at the end of season 2, where you have Greg, kind of the Chekhov's Greg, if you will, where he really held on to some material, and then he had been talking to Kendall, and then of course at the very end he's kind of like, hey, I'm here, I'm on your side, and they're and all that's going down. So I'm really going to be interested. Yeah, all the dynamics and new characters. We didn't get to see them in this one. They were focusing on people we've already met, but really looking forward to how they include Adrian Brody, and then even more so Alexander Skarsgård. I'm really excited to see him back in another HBO series. He's always great. So yeah, can't wait. I'm excited. I think that's obvious.
All right, I give you permission to proceed now.
Oh no, you can take the reins for this one, buddy.
Baby, yeah.
This is the trailer you said you were most excited about, right?
Oh, this is my most anticipated film of the year. American Underdog. So this was not an actual trailer.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but American Underdog, the Kurt Warner story. For those of you out there who are just diehard Kurt Warner fans, we got our first look at this. It was a behind the scene. It was like a weird kind of just the approach of it all, like they didn't release a trailer, but this was something that you would see normally like shortly before the movie comes out, or like after the trailer at least. But it was like a behind the scenes, like making of kind of thing, with interviews with Kurt Warner, with Zachary Levi, who's playing him, like with footage, like showing how they make the football scenes. Like, yeah, cool. It would have been cool if this movie looked any good at all. But no disrespect to Zachary Levi, Dennis Quaid, and the crew, Anna Paquin, and Kurt Warner himself, but this is the most like Lifetime movie looking thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
It looks terrible. Like, I hate to say it.
I know, like, it's a great story. First, like, in the realm of sports, it's this great story. Like, Kurt Warner goes from like bagging groceries to being a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Like, that's great. But I don't like, to me, that never struck me when this was before I saw a snippet of this that made it look awful. Like, I was already out on this because I didn't think that this was something necessarily like cinematic. It didn't need to be, just because it's a cool story doesn't mean it needs to be turned into a movie. Right. But it's like the production company is Kingdom Story Company, which is like, they've done the I Still Believe, I Can Only Imagine. It's like all of the like super Christian movies. And this like certainly feels like one of those,
Oh, definitely is.
Where it's like pretty low budget, but the budget, I'm interested because like Dennis Quaid, Zachary Levi, Anna Paquin, it's not like those aren't like no-namers,
Yeah.
to be able to fill out the Maybe Kurt Warner's shelling out some dough for this too.
This is executive producer credit.
But yeah,
no, it's looks like exactly what we thought it would. Unfortunately,
I mean,
I wouldn't count on Zachary Levi picking up any Oscar noms for this.
Yeah, but I just think at this point it's 2021. Like,
do better.
Can we get football people to play football players in movies? Like his throwing motion. I don't know if you notice it in the clip, but it's like he's never thrown a football in his life before. Like, I know that they like put stunt people in there. Like, the extras are usually like Jake was in a commercial as a Kansas City Chiefs player. Like, I don't know what the context of that was, but like they get football people with experience to like do the stunts or like get hit or whatever or be extras. But like, can someone please, like, celebrities have to do their like Hollywood run to learn how to like look like an action star, but like, can we put the same effort into like the sports side of things to make it semi-watchable?
Right.
Like, it's rough.
Yeah, it's ugly. And I'll leave it at that. I don't want to dump on this
we don't need to go too far into Kurt Warner territory.
Yeah, but it's no bueno.
Well, let's go to something that is certainly more bueno than Kurt Warner. Mixed levels of bueno, I believe. So we'll have to dive in here. But Black Widow and the MCU's return to the big screen.
I heard you had to leave in a hurry.
It's never easy these days.
So what are you going to do?
I've lived a lot of lives, but I'm done running from my past.
I know you're out there.
I know you know I'm out here. So we're gonna talk like grown-ups? Is that what we are? It's good to see you too, sis.
What brings you home?
We have unfinished business. We have to go back to where it all started.
Lucky us.
One thing's for sure. It's gonna be a hell of a reunion.
So we have started phase 4 in an unconventional way. You know, Spider-Man Far From Home wrapped up phase 3. It was set to then kick off phase 4 a few months later with Black Widow. Obviously, pandemic hit, calendar got shuffled around, and things kicked off with WandaVision, with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, with Loki, and then finally Black Widow. So it's been a long time to get here, and even longer for the fans of Black Widow who have been begging for this movie since Iron Man 2. And those are definitely justified complaints, justified calls for this movie to be made. And certainly even after you watch this movie, it makes the case even stronger that it should have come out earlier. But Scarlett Johansson, Florence Pugh, David Harbour, Rachel Weisz, those are the stars here, currently sitting at an 80% critic score, 92% audience score. I enjoyed this quite a bit. Great to be back with Marvel on the big screen. A lot of good things here. Definitely some complaints. We'll talk about that. But 76 for myself. Johnny, do you have a number you're willing to stamp on this?
I'd say a good little jump below that. I'd probably say like 60, 65, 60. Yeah, right up in there.
Okay.
Low to mid 60s.
We're at least both on the positive side, though. We're above 50%. We can come to some agreements on
leaning
this movie,
positive. Like. Yes.
I mean, I will say you did send a message in the group right after you finished that said Black Widow good, spelled G-U-D. So
well, that's
a stamp of approval right there.
That's certifiable. Okay.
It is. I think I'm just going to put that. I'm going to take my review down off the website and just put that with the poster. So
down for that.
Let me get the plot here before we break it down. Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, confronts the darker parts of her ledger when a dangerous conspiracy with ties to her past arises. Pursued by a force that will stop at nothing to bring her down, Natasha must deal with her history as a spy and the broken relationships left in her wake long before she became an Avenger. So,
Wow.
for those that may be casual fans, let's set it all out there that, as most people know, Black Widow died in Avengers Endgame. So this movie takes place between Captain America Civil War and the events of Avengers Infinity War. So it's in that 2015, 2016 window of time, which is when this movie should have come out. So a great coincidence there. But this is how we're having a Black Widow movie post-death, which interesting that we're kicking off phase 4 with something that's in the middle of phase 3 with a character who's not going to actually be in phase 4. Like a lot of they really went around their ear to get to their elbow. I believe that's the saying. But
I've never heard it, but I believe it.
It makes sense though. But
it applies here.
It most certainly does. But I'm definitely excited that we get this movie in some form or fashion. Wish it could have been earlier, but general thoughts about this movie.
It could have been better too.
Well, yes, but like you always wish everything could have been better. Like
sometimes.
But, so let me lay it out here. I like this movie quite a bit. Definitely it's middle of the pack Marvel, but I'm more like generous, I would say, than you, Johnny, when it comes to just like going to movies to enjoy it, especially Marvel. But I liked this. I thought that it had a good with it, like everything that I've said about it being like kind of weird, it made it work because it was being like a standalone type thing. And that's something I want to get into in a couple bullet points here on the Google Doc about like the expectations of this movie and the reaction to it, what it ended up being. But I thought it worked well. I thought it was fairly safe as far as like a return to the big screen. It was your pretty standard Marvel procedure, but it was elevated by the fact that it was Scarlett Johansson, it was Florence Pugh, who's great. We'll talk about her. Like the Rachel Weisz, David Harbour, the family aspect of it was good. Yes, always working in F9 from here on out. Yes, significantly less Coronas, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean there were certainly problems with the villain. I had issues with the villain. Oh
God, yeah.
Which we'll get into. I have a whole bullet point about that. But like as far as just like what I was hoping for, I went in. It was good to be back with these characters. They did it. It was they did justice to the character who had been overlooked for so long. It was a good closure for Scarlett Johansson as Natasha. I was satisfied. Again, we'll get into some more of the specifics in a second, but any general thoughts that you want to lay out here before we get started?
Yeah, I mean, real quick, I mean, as I said earlier, very much thought that this was very much middle of the road, lower MCU. But still, I think my general feelings about it, there are positive, good things in this that I can pick out and say, yeah, I really liked that. I loved that. That was cool. But again, there's probably another 50% that I can say, that was really not good, or I wish that this had been better. But I think just in my own experience, I've seen it once. I watched it at home. I got the screener. I didn't feel like I had wasted my time. Like when I finished it, I was like, okay.
The ultimate compliment from Johnny Sobchak.
Clearly another chapter in this MCU. And as someone who's a fan of the franchise, I can't be too mad at it. Certainly not this isn't a Thor or an Ant-Man 2 or anything where it just feels
whoa
so or Incredible Hulk where it just feels so like nothing, and so like just a non, it's because those movies to me, again, I don't think this movie is great. I don't think it's like super good. I just think that it was a big not disappointment, just like, or maybe it was like at least in some regards,
that's what I want to get into here.
Yeah.
I think it fell victim to obviously like the rearranging of the timeline of the release calendar. This was something that I know you had pointed out, I believe on social media, of just like this movie, this Marvel, like the biggest of the big, was like coming out, and there was little to no like hype. You know, it wasn't like
Right,
people
I
were
did
like,
tweet that, yeah.
have you gotten your tickets yet? Like, are you going to be there? Like, it wasn't
Right.
like a oh my god, I can't wait until Black Widow comes out.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I was excited about it. I watched the screener like the day that I got it. We only had 2 days to watch it, but but I was like, I even myself, who's like a big Marvel fan, I wasn't like, oh my god, I'm counting down the days until Black Widow comes out.
Right.
Which I don't know if that's like because of just like okay, I know this isn't going to be a huge movie because it's like the end of the character. It's like a standalone thing, but or if it was like, okay, I've already watched 2 Marvel shows this year. I've got another one that I'm currently watching. Am I Marveled out or what?
I think it's definitely a multifaceted situation. I mean, the things that you just mentioned, and then as well, I mean, the pandemic no doubt has played a part. I think this movie was supposed to be out over a year ago. Literally, it was dated for May. But then if you want to think about it even more than that, I mean, we could say this movie should have been out half a decade ago. Or, you know, the character was introduced in 2010 in Iron Man 2. They had 10 years really to develop this and plan it out.
Right.
And then meanwhile, you have one of the screenwriters or the screenwriter on Variety saying, "Oh, well, I wrote this in 10 days." Well, okay, like congrats. Like we can tell, like we know that the people behind this should have put a little bit more care and thought into it. And I know some people who are big fans of Black Widow and are fans of maybe Scarlett Johansson in this role or Natasha, like I'm glad that they're getting this. Like I have no doubt, like we needed a Black Widow movie at some point. And I'm glad that people are liking it. I think that they deserve better, the fans that were really looking forward to this. And I think as a an MCU fan and supporter that has really tuned in or watched all of the projects at least once, I think at this point they are the biggest franchise in human history, or like cinema history at least. I think that they could have done a lot of at least little things here and there to make this a more interesting, exciting, worthy entry, and not just an entry into the franchise, but as a standalone on its own film, unrelated to everything else. I think that this could have been done better.
I think
has been done better elsewhere.
Right. That's a big part of it too. Like with the disappointment, like I'm not like someone who can't sit back and like separate from the universe, and like I was perfectly okay with this being like its own kind of like standalone, like semi origin story, because we like learn the background, but obviously we know the character. But with it being calendar like day to date, like 2 years since Far From Home release, like over 2 years, like people were just desperate for it. Like it's not Black Widow's fault that this wasn't Avengers 5, to welcome back the MCU to the big screen. And like obviously 92% audience score, it's not like people are disliking this whatsoever. But like I feel like that there was maybe some bit of a letdown because of just like the circumstances around it, and that this was the one to return. And then also like all of the confusion of like, we're starting phase 4, but it's still in phase 3, and it's not really going to interconnect to anything else moving forward, except for maybe one little thing. Like, it was just like but that being like that, it let it be its own thing. It definitely felt different. Like, I know I'm not going to make any comparison. Well, I'll make a little bit, but like you hate the comparisons of like saying this was inspired. I guess this is acceptable because I believe you're okay with saying it felt like this, but not the one of like, this movie was heavily inspired by Citizen Kane, or like, how they kind of make all those comparisons now. But like this very much like had its own like, and it's part of the character. Black Widow like is one of the few that does not have superpowers, like nobody in this, with the exception of David Harbour, is like a superhero, quote unquote.
And the thing is,
so like,
go ahead.
So it's like, I know you're going to talk about like the climax sequence and like what happened there, but just the feel of it in general was much more grounded than like MCU, like, Thor or like spider, like the people with like the supernatural powers and stuff.
Yeah,
and so that with that being said, it like had a very, like, not to the quality of either of these, but like a Bond, Mission Impossible, like globe trotting, like spy espionage, like that kind of feel versus something that is like straight out of the MCU.
Right. Yeah, so those comparisons, I mean, the things you just mentioned, the franchises you just mentioned, this movie, I think, because a Bourne movie is very different from a Bond movie. A Bourne movie is very much like, toned down, like low key, gritty, spy thriller action movie, like hand to hand combat. You don't have, you know, mountains falling down or giant things falling out of the sky. Like, it's not like that. And sometimes you'll even see that in some Bond movies, or Mission Impossible has some big action set pieces, but nothing of earth shattering giant proportions usually. And I thought that they had a great opportunity with this character in particular to do something in a big movie. You could still do $100 million movie for Black Widow, and that's bigger than a lot of other movies. But for this, they went with $200 million, and let's do an avalanche, and let's do a giant floating facility in the sky, and we'll have that explode and crash, and we'll have Black Widow jump through the sky and fall miles to the ground and fight people in midair and jump on, like. If you watched this movie and knew absolutely nothing about Black Widow as a character, but you knew, oh, it's Marvel Comics, it's Marvel Studios, and you hadn't seen any of the other movies, you would think that she has superpowers. Like, absolutely no question, you would think she has superpowers, because it's not even just a climax. And this was an issue I had with it. And I tweeted about how I watched this with my girlfriend, who was looking, quite excited about it, looking forward to it. Especially someone who's newer to the MCU and kind of binged them earlier this year. And like, I mean, it wasn't more than 20 minutes, 25 minutes into the movie where I think it was the first action scene with Taskmaster where
on the bridge.
On the bridge. She's in her car and she just gets, I mean, smashed by this like tank that Taskmaster is driving. And the car goes flipping and flying and crashing, and like it half explodes. And then like Black Widow climbs out of it, and like in 2 seconds later she's fighting Taskmaster and like doing backflips and kicks, and like, I mean, there's not even, I mean, she might have had a bloody lip or something, but there was nothing else that like should have protected her or kept her from like her head caving in. Like, it's just, and as soon as that starts, and that's like your kind of big first action sequence with those characters, like my ability to care is just like so like deflated. And I think the rest of the movie kind of carried that on. Like, it just was hard for me to stay like engaged with the action. I thought the action in general, again, we're talking about Mission Impossible, we're talking about Bourne, notable franchises for their action, most specifically, and their stunt work and the incredible, effects. This I thought was lacking severely for a movie. If you want to be inspired by those or make those comparisons, should have been better with the hand-to-hand combat. They should have been edited better. The scenes should have been shot better to feel more impactful. It just felt very lightweight. And I think, again, you mentioned earlier, and I mentioned on, like, I tweeted yesterday, the climactic action scene for your grounded, completely human hero who doesn't have super strength or, can't survive getting thrown off a building like Captain America can. It should not have been her flying through the air and miles above the surface of the earth, and then
right,
magically kind of fighting her way along, and then surviving that and landing and doing a little more fighting. It was just like,
if we could have had like a John Wick 3 sort of fight at the end of just like one-on-one.
That's what I would have loved to have seen. Exactly. And I don't know, and that's a great point, and I don't know if that's, again, the script was knocked out in like, the certain amount of time it was, or the director doesn't have, like, of course, a lot of experience with action or a movie of this scale. And Kevin Feige, of course, is, a major influence as well in how they develop these things. I just don't know why they chose to go the same route you go with every other character who has superpowers and is used to that kind of craziness. And instead you could have done something. And I think it's even more ironic because what's the strongest part of this movie, Zach? I'll just ask you.
Is there a right answer to this, or are you asking my opinion?
I have
feel
my
like
own
I'm-
answer, but I have my own answer, but I wouldn't say there's a right answer. I'm just curious.
I mean, I thought the strongest part of it was Florence Pugh.
Exactly. Okay. So Florence Pugh is one of the best parts. And she, and then in connection with David Harbour's character and, you know, Rachel Weisz's character, the family is the best part. The scenes that she has between Natasha and Yelena, I thought were the best. Of course, you have like the sit down dinner scene, which I thought was great. The best parts of this movie are the lower key, smaller, almost like quieter moments, I think, where you have the characters engaging and talking and their relationships. Okay, so let's keep that kind of level of intensity with the action scene, make it more intimate, make it more high stakes. I think,
Right.
or low stakes, but high in relation to what we've seen in other movies. I think, again, this is an ending that could have been for any of the other superheroes, Iron Man, Captain America, you know, and we've seen similar things like that, you know, whether it was Winter Soldier, Iron Man 3, or what have you. Instead, we got, you know, we could have done something smaller, we could have done something more interesting. I think this was just more of the same, and I think it's a bummer because at a time when you're looking to diversify your gargantuan franchise and do different projects and take different risks and provide something unique and fresh to your audience, I think, again, this is a victim of not only the pandemic delays, but the wait to do a Black Widow movie, where if you had done this maybe in 2015, 2016, we wouldn't be thinking about it in that same way, I guess. But I still think as it stands in this year and when it's being released and seeing it for myself, it still doesn't reach that bar of like even a super good like MCU or superhero movie. I think it deserved a little bit more.
I'm with you. I agree with all that. The climax specifically could have been a whole lot better.
Yeah, and we won't really go too much into the effects, which have been talked about at length online already because of Disney Plus. But yeah, it's bad. Like the lines that they're hanging from the wires are not painted out all the way, and the green screen backgrounds are really bad. It's just bad, and the effects throughout the movie weren't like superb or anything, but it really at the end was like, okay, where's the $200 million like at? Because I've seen movies made for less that look a million times better than this. So just another technical thing that I thought could have been better at this point in this franchise.
Well, you mentioned Florence Pugh, or I guess I mentioned. I want to talk about that, and then we also mentioned Taskmaster, the villain. Let's talk about Florence Pugh and the family first, and then we'll go to Taskmaster. But as I just said, Florence Pugh is my favorite part. There's no hiding the fact that Johnny and I are both, and most of the world are both, like huge fans of Florence Pugh, and the fact that she was included in a Marvel movie was awesome. I know we've mentioned previously that we don't want this to be like, because she's been in so many great things, from like Midsummer to Little Women, Fighting with My Family, like everything that we've seen her in so far, we don't want her to just get like bogged down in Marvel and limit herself from doing her other great projects. But
right,
you know, she was, to no one's surprise, like freaking awesome in this movie. She stole, I feel like, I'm sure, I don't know, Scarlett Johansson, I feel like she probably was a little upset that Florence Pugh was like the star. Like people are walking out of this movie talking about, it's kind of positioned that way since, you know, she's supposed to be like picking up the mantle moving forward. But like from as far as like the dramatic acting, she had a heavier lift, being like the younger sister who felt betrayed by her family because it wasn't real to anyone but her. In the comedic side of things, she was the one who was delivering like some iconic one-liners, making fun of the pose. And her accent too is like significantly, like it's very impressive and consistent throughout, doing the whole like Russian accent. So I don't know if you have any shout outs to Florence Pugh, but she was great here.
Yeah, I mean, she's by far the best person in this movie. I mean, and we all know, I mean,
that's including Emmy nominee David Harbour, Oscar winner Rachel Weisz, Oscar nominee and maybe winner, I don't know, Scarlett Johansson. Has she won?
No, she has not won.
Okay.
And I will say, like, I've definitely been critical of Scarlett Johansson in the past, and I think you know, she's also had performances I've really liked her in, Marriage Story being the primary example. But I mean, I think we would both agree that Florence Pugh could act circles around Scarlet. Like there's no doubt about that. She's the best part. She's funny. She has, as you mentioned, she carries a lot of the emotional weight in this movie. She, really shines in those scenes. And she bounces off well, and I think had good, chemistry with her other co-stars, and that definitely goes a long way and helps in her likability and the flow of it. So yeah, definitely a fan of her, and I said this yesterday. I'm glad that she's going to be presumably a maybe not a huge anchor in the franchise, but like someone that will return multiple times.
Right.
Could potentially even be in Avengers movies or Avengers shows or something.
Right. And we'll talk about that, the post credits and what to expect in a second. But so one of my biggest complaints, aside from the stuff that we've already mentioned here with this movie, is Taskmaster, the use of that character. And in the marketing, this Taskmaster was presented as like the big bad, the main character, the main villain.
Mhm.
People who had seen the comic or read the comics knew of the mimicking ability and the powers here. But when you actually watch the movie, you get 1-2 fights with Taskmaster, and then there's a bigger bad that's revealed, and that's someone, Dreykov, who is just your stereotypical early Marvel movie. like Marvel had a great string of villains, like Loki obviously being a great one in the original Avengers, and then Vulture was great.
People like
Killmonger. Like there was once they got in their groove and like phase late 2, early 3, maybe, like there was a streak of just like great ones. But those early ones, were kind of just like a generic, like I'm gonna take over the world. And like while that may not have been like this guy's goal, like directly, it was just kind of like, okay, well, here's the big guy who's hiding, like who's moving everything behind the scenes, and we have to go take him out, and he's just like a normal person. Like that kind of upset me, and that was like what made me lean into calling this like the typical Marvel formula, versus like something where it was a new twist or anything like that. But I was also just very disappointed in Taskmaster, and it seems like there could be some, like it's Dreykov's daughter was the big reveal, and that like they saved Taskmaster and like freed them from the mind control. But like, so there could be something moving forward, but like as far as using that villain as like someone who's just like kicking ass and taking names in this movie, it was very underwhelming. It was over promised and under delivered.
Yeah, that sums it up really well. Had no idea or any awareness of Dreykov as a character.
Not even mentioned in the trailers or anything.
No. So I don't know if that was just something I missed or if that was something that they really did kind of keep under wraps. Taskmaster was someone, there have been the visual comparisons with the shield and the claw, like the gloves and everything, comparisons to Captain America or Black Panther with regards to like the fighting capabilities, or Hawkeye with the bow and arrow, which again, pretty formidable, in the action scenes. Definitely takes it right to the characters, Natasha and Yelena. But it just, it just didn't, there was nothing to it. And it definitely felt like an early MCU villain in that way. And the Dreykov, I guess you maybe call it a reveal. He is alive. He was believed to be dead. And then he comes back, and there's this weird thing where with like the pheromones or something, which was completely out of nowhere, like not even hinted at. And then it becomes like a major factor at the very end. That was just sloppy. I just thought that was really lame. They could have done something else. Again, I appreciate the messaging that they're trying to go for with this, where it's like, human trafficking is bad, and
bold statements by the MCU.
Really gross, misogynistic, abusive men run the world and take advantage of women and control women, or try to, and that's valid, obviously, totally true and accurate. But I think they could have done something a little bit more nuanced, with the antagonist of this project. Whenever they were drafting this up in the 10-day period that the guy was bragging about, I just think that they could have done something, more interesting, a little unconventional. Instead, it was very much middle of the road. The Taskmaster reveal was again a big nothing. I mean,
Did you? I want to. Did you? I don't know. I feel like I went into this movie fully expecting Rachel Weisz to be the Taskmaster, like, 'cause she goes away after that opening sequence, and then I thought that that's who it was going to be until. So I was a little surprised by that, and also disappointed that, like, oh, okay, it's just the daughter who we learned about 30 minutes ago. Like,
yeah, I mean, again, not familiar with Rachel Weisz's character, like in the comics or whatever has been set up for her. I don't know about Taskmaster in the comics either. But I think anything literally could have been better than this. I mean, I understand again what they're trying to do. And I've seen people say, and I tweeted about this yesterday, I don't care that you can bring Taskmaster back, 5-10 years from now. I don't care that you can develop this character later on in a show or a movie. I care about how it functions within this movie, because this movie needs a good villain. It needs some characterization, some development. And we didn't really get that. And so regardless of what happens later on, I thought it was a bit of a fail here, kind of a flop. Deserved better. Again, I think that was just another element where they should have pumped it up a lot more and taken more care and time and effort with it.
well, before we wrap up, let's talk post credits here, as one does with a Marvel movie. This again initially was supposed to come out first, and we learned during the reveal in Falcon and the Winter Soldier that Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine was supposed to be initially introduced in this movie. We get her here in the post credits. I'm curious if there was more, that was changed, maybe, because if this was supposed to be her initial introduction, I would have been so confused. I don't think I don't even know if they said her name or if it was just like face recognition now that we have seen the past show.
Right.
But what we get here is Val. We'll just call her Val. I think that is the only thing that she is referred, that Florence Pugh calls her. But
Right.
So the movie again was set in like the pre-Infinity War era, and then this post-credit scene takes place after Endgame, post-snap, post-victory over Thanos, and Black Widow is now dead. So Yelena is like mourning at the grave of Natasha and just like having a moment, paying tribute. And Val shows up and is again trying to like recruit. We saw her recruit John Walker as U.S. agent to join her. Now she clearly has a history with Yelena, and who I guess is assuming that, or I guess there are multiple Black Widows, but I assume for the purpose of the MCU, she is going to be the Black Widow.
Yeah.
But she basically offers him a chance to get even with the person who caused Natasha's death, and shows a picture of Clinton Barton, aka Hawkeye. So indirectly, yes. I mean, if she's trying to twist this, like, obviously he did not kill her. He was not the cause of it. They were fighting to die, to be noble. Like, in no form or fashion was he the reason she's dead. But technically speaking, because he came back instead of her, like, yes, he is the reason.
Right.
But I don't know, like, is this going to be, we know there's a Hawkeye show coming. Is Florence Pugh going to start doing TV shows? Like, I know Marvel's kind of different, but like, I feel like she's just like too big time for that. What do you take from this or expect here?
I really don't know. I mean, we know she's going to show up in Hawkeye. So, if she's
like, I can't imagine Hawkeye, the character, being in another movie anytime soon, at least one that's been announced,
Right. And
so like,
I
also don't imagine Florence Pugh to be in multiple episodes. Like, it's not like she's going to be a series regular on Hawkeye, I wouldn't imagine.
Oh yeah, no, I expect her to show up for like it could be just a scene, it could be an episode. I don't know. But yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, there's a lot of options. She could be in a Thunderbolt show. She could be in
right. That's where I was going.
She could get her own show. She could get a Black Widow show. Maybe it focuses on her and her some sort of mission involving all the other widows that we saw in this movie and some plot about that. She could be in a I know Florence Pugh is obviously a fully adult grown woman, but she could be, in some sort of like Young Avengers type of project, whether that be a TV series or a movie. Or she could be in a primary Avengers movie. She could come back and team up with those people and work with them. Whoever might be involved in that. I mean, it could go anywhere. And I think
I know one of the big theories is Thunderbolts, like you mentioned. Again, all I've learned is from the fandom page for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I don't know all of the intricacies here, but one of the theories is that Val is working to recruit the Thunderbolts, who is like similar to the Avengers. It's similar to like a Suicide Squad as well, of like reformed villains.
Yeah.
And so like members, like Black Widow has been associated with it. Hawkeye has Taskmaster. Obviously, those are all people directly in this movie or referenced in this movie.
Yeah.
We've seen Val interact with U.S. Agent, John Walker. So we could see a John Walker and Yelena association or team up. But Val is obviously working for somebody in like a Nick Fury capacity, trying to recruit. And Thaddeus Ross, once again, Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross was in this movie.
Yes.
As like the agent. He keeps popping up without being like ever a main character. He introduces like the Sokovia Accords, but that's like the extent of his like stardom in the MCU. So like I feel like this guy keeps
he's going to be
in
She-Hulk though. Definitely.
Oh yeah. So I feel like that's part of I think that's like part of like the big theory that he's the one. I mean, his nickname is Thunderbolt Ross. Like they're called the Thunderbolts. Like I feel like that's what they're trying to set up here. But
I think so. I think regardless of maybe a connection in this movie or Florence Pugh and all that, I think the Thunderbolts are definitely in the works. Most likely, I would think as a Disney Plus show, maybe as a film. I mean, who knows? But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of potential, ways they could go with it. So, I mean, I'm curious if nothing else.
Well, one last question before we wrap up. We kept saying this should have come out during 2015, 2016. If that had been the case, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Who would have starred in this movie? Obviously, we still have Scarlett Johansson as Natasha, as Black Widow, but do you have any other thoughts about who would have been Yelena? Who would have been Florence Pugh? Was not the superstar she is now. She wouldn't have been cast. Myself, tough. It's kind of like it wouldn't have happened because of like pre-existing commitments, but I feel like in 2015 there was no one bigger than Jennifer Lawrence. Like she would have been Yelena, and I could have seen that. Like her and Florence Pugh are similar. Florence Pugh hasn't quite reached that level of stardom with like her own franchise like Lawrence did with Hunger Games and being an X-Men. Yeah. But I feel like that would have been the dream fan casting on the internet at that time. I didn't really come up with anybody to play Red Guardian or Melina. I think that was Rachel Weisz's character's name.
Yeah,
but I don't know if you have any suggestions there.
No, that's tough. I mean, David Harbour definitely coming off. I mean, Stranger Things has premiered, started as a show since 2015.
Right. He wasn't he wasn't who he is now, at that time.
Wasn't. But yeah, I mean, Jennifer Lawrence, there's no way in hell she would have done it just because of the X-Men situation.
And Hunger Games was still probably going on at that time.
Yeah. But I will say, Jennifer Lawrence went on to star in the best Black Widow movie that's ever been made. So
Red Sparrow.
Yeah. So she maybe she kind of won in a way on that one, but I think she would wanted to have nothing to do with like a more comic book like superhero movies, like being tied down to a franchise. That would have probably been her worst nightmare. But she would have been a good fit. I mean, she definitely fits that role, I think.
Right. Yeah. And and I feel like they're very similar. Her and Florence Pugh.
Definitely.
Well, any final thoughts on Black Widow? I know I said 76. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Johnny, you were 60, 65-ish.
Yeah. I've said it all. It is what it is. It's not anything super great, super good, but it's not terrible. It's not like flat out bad. I think there's good stuff in here. There's stuff that I really liked. But there's also stuff that I thought was really not good and stuff that I disliked or wish it had been different. It's middle of the road. If you like the MCU, you probably need to check it out, just to stay up on everything. But also, I feel like even if you're a fan of the MCU, I mean, you could watch this in 3 months when it comes out for free on Disney Plus and probably not miss a beat or have anything like substantially ruined, given that it is a prequel. So yeah, it's if you don't like the MCU, or you only like a handful of the movies, like some of the best ones, you really don't need to see this. I think you could probably just like steer clear, because you'll just feel like who cares, right, about any of this, because this happened like years ago and doesn't really affect anything going on going forward. But
however, I will say it is, you can suggest this to non-MCU fans to watch because of the fact that it's not necessarily interconnected. Like they could still see it. And I mean, again, it's not on par with the Mission Impossible or a Bond or a Bourne, like as far as just like spy thrillers go. But like, I feel like someone who's a casual fan or hasn't seen any of them could like see it and enjoy it. Not to the extent of like everyone else, but still like have
some entertainment value there. Yeah, I agree.
Well, there you have it, folks. Black Widow. Thank you all for listening. It's good to be back and be chatting with you all again. So thanks again for tuning in and week out.
Yes, we are so happy to have you guys, and we really appreciate the support. Couldn't do it without you, and I'm glad to be back and talking to you all again. So thank you. Follow us on Twitter if you haven't already. Keep up with all the good memes, polls, and giveaways we have going over there. Instagram as well. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe on YouTube. You can find all the podcast episodes there if you are interested. And those accounts can be found at Inside Film Room.
And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. And come back next week for a certified doozy as we break down Space Jam: A New Legacy. See you then.